Thank you very much. So again, a lot of different people here, thousands of people here. It's getting ready to move probably the next 5 minutes or so. Again, a march to Yorkville and then right back here to Queen's Park. For the Liberals' part, they say this budget is necessary, especially when it comes to cutting down the debt and the deficit, something almost every single person here completely disagrees with. Back to you.
Very much for that, Devin. Stephen LeDrew is here. Stephen, that man from the Peel Region School Board said, sure, we could do an election.
But he said have an election if the budget is passed. If the budget is passed, there's no opportunity for an election. But I mean, that's just a minor detail. I mean, he said we've already feeling the cuts. And while he was speaking, we could hear that the speaker in the background. And while this gentleman was speaking to Devin, I was thinking of the protests in Greece. And where there are cutbacks, they're forced cutbacks because it's like a family budget. If you're, if you're constantly spending more than you're bringing in, you're in serious trouble. And Greece felt that, and Spain has felt that, Portugal has felt that. Ontario, Drummond was asked when he brought his report, he said, are we going towards Greece? He said, not right now. But in 2 or 3 years, if we don't change, it could be. So there are going to be some austerity measures, and no question about it. The Liberal government has spent an awful lot of money the last few years, and money that they didn't have. So we're going to be hearing the protests about that, but that's not really one of the central themes today. The central themes today that we've been hearing so far from other speakers is that of labor, collective labor rights and labor negotiations. That's what they're getting at.
All right, thank you very much, Stephen. Time is now 4:27. We're sitting at 7 degrees, and you're watching Toronto's Breaking News, CP24. Stay with us. We're going to have all the day's top stories. We'll have more from this rally at Queen's Park after the break. A rally protesting the Ontario budget is underway at Queen's Park. Here's a live look at Queen's Park, where representatives from more than 90 community and labor groups are gathered to protest what they're calling an unfair provincial budget. Demonstrators are now on the move after listening to a series of speeches. CP24 Stephen LeDrew also joins us now live in studio. Stephen, we've heard from Andrew Horwath, we've heard from Sid Ryan, and all these speakers today trying to rile up the crowds, get them going into Yorkville. They're going into Yorkville to protest the so-called 1%, where they are. That's what they say. Well, what do you make so far of what's happened today?
I mean, they don't call it the Meek Mile for nothing. I mean, it is a very risky place along Bloor Street, along Yorkville. I mean, there were some very effective speakers there. I mean, first of all, it's supposed to be finished at 5 o'clock. So, I mean, as is usual, have you ever seen this before? That, where we have speakers speaking longer when they're at the podium than they ever anticipated. That's happened a lot because they should be really on their way back to Queen's Park now, according to their own organized schedule. But I mean, they're on the move now. We're going to see what happens when they run into that construction on Bay Street. Bay Street, just to the east of Queen's Park, is reduced down to 2 lanes. And then as they go along Bloor Street, it's actually a bit later now than they anticipated going along Bloor Street. And I'm certain a lot of the shoppers will have finished for the day. So they've had their speeches. We see a few umbrellas up there as well, whether there's Patricia saying there's going to be a few speckles of rain. Maybe they are feeling those speckles of rain. But we'll see how it progresses with the march as it proceeds right now.
And we've got you covered on the ground. CP24's Jackie Crandall, she's going to be following the protest up to Yorkville and joins us now live with more. Jackie, you're embedded with this group. Tell us where you are, what you see.
Well, we're just leaving Queen's Park now. We're still in the driveway, but as you can see, hundreds of people already on the move. They have their signs, they have their flags, they have their banners, and they're ready for this march to begin. I've got Katie with me now. Katie, you spoke earlier. Tell me who you're with.
I'm with the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare.
So what is it that you're here today for? What's the message that you're hoping to spread?
Well, we're here because in the original budget proposed on April 27th, there wasn't a single mention of children under the age of 4 or no acknowledgement of the childcare crisis we're going through right now. There was an announcement yesterday that the Premier is considering budging on and going with the NDP proposals and actually taking a step further. But we're also here in solidarity with all of the other sectors that are facing, some devastating cuts. And we're basically here to stand with everyone and say we are Ontario and our kids are Ontario as well.
What do you think about the concessions that were announced yesterday?
I think that it's budging, and there's a whole lot of budging that needs to happen. I think that for this to be a budget that really represents our Ontario, there need to be a lot of changes.
Thank you, Katie, for joining me. I appreciate it. You've got a cast on, so you're on the move, but not very fast. As you can see, a lot of noise, a lot of people is making their way out of the driveway at Queen's Park. We're going to head to up Wellesley. We're going to be along Bay Street, then along Bloor Street, then back down to Queen's Park. And of course, the destination of this march, Yorkville. And that very significant. They say that the people that are organizing this march say that that signifies that gap between the rich and the poor, the 99% and the 1%, something that point that they're really relying on to get their message across today, hoping that there will be some changes in the corporate tax structure to help ease some of the burden on the regular working people that are here today. Back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Jackie. All right, Stephen, there are 90 different groups here. They've all got different concerns, different demands. Andrea Horwath is their negotiator at the table with Premier McGuinty. She's only asked for a few things. Are people going to be happy at the end of the day when the budget has to be voted on and they don't get everything they want?
Well, I think they're realistic, and people know that they aren't going to have the whole list of the demands made by NDP leader Andrea Horwath. And also, we heard just a few minutes ago, Sid Ryan was quite critical of the NDP for not pushing harder for social assistance benefits. So people have to be realistic. I think that most of these people are pretty seasoned in their social activities, and they know that they aren't going to get everything. But it is certainly a shot across the bow of this government that they're having this demonstration this afternoon. What we're seeing now, Carmen, is just proof positive that it's a lot more fun to march than it is to sit and listen to speeches. And we heard quite a docile crowd, really, when most of the speeches were going on. And now that they're finally on the move, these people have been waiting for upwards of 2 or 2.5 hours. Some have been bussed in for a long time, a long way outside of Toronto. So they're on the move now. They have their flags and their whistles, and we'll see how this march goes and what type of sort of public support it attracts along the way. You can see it right now through the beautiful green gardens around Queen's Park, and they're heading over, along Wellesley to Bay Street and then up Bay to Bloor. So we'll see whether they attract supporters along the way or whether they're met with some sort of opposition. Probably not either, really, but we'll see whether, they have people who come out and say, yeah, we're with you.
Well, Stephen, this whole conversation in terms of the budget vote and election, we've heard a lot from Andrea Horwath, we've heard from McGuinty, Tim Hudak, the Tories. They said very early on, no, we're not going to support this budget. Do you think they're having second thoughts now that they could have gotten some more from the McGuinty government had they just opposed it a little bit more?
Well, I mean, they said it from the outset, even before they read the budget, that they are all voting to a person against the budget. They made a strategic error by taking themselves out of play. And they've been putting out press releases every day, not getting any airtime on it, because they are not a threat. I mean, they are just not in play on this thing, while Andrea Horwath has been in play every day. She's played this wonderfully well for a politician. The other thing is, of course, we have to be, sensitive to, Carmen, is that Andrea has been saying all along she's not drawing a line in the sand, and she doesn't necessarily want an election. And she has to be careful. No, I don't think it does, Carmen, because most people don't want an election in Ontario. And so whoever causes that election is going to have some problems the first few days of the campaign. So she's been saying consistently that she doesn't want an election, and that's smart on her part, because if there is an election, and if Mr. McGuinty does not give anything more than he's given already, there could be one, highly unlikely, but there could be one, then it's going to be on Mr. McGuinty's shoulders as opposed to her. That's the way she has crafted it. The Liberals have not been very, very public this week, so, I mean, she is winning the war on the public airways. There's no question about that. She's been very strategic. We'll have to wait and see. We're going to cover this very closely the next 48 hours as to whether, in fact, that vote on Tuesday has the NDP coming out to a person. Remember, Carmen, there's only 2 MPPs that have to withstand, or sorry, not vote. So if there is one Tory that's sick and another NDP who is sick or absent from the vote, then the government's not defeated.
Well, I bet both parties are going to be whipping that vote. Everyone will be there. And Andrea has said, I know she talked to you, that her whole caucus will vote together, no matter what. So she's
a leader, she has to say that.
Right, and I expect that they will. And same with the Conservatives. No one's going to stray there. And I think the Liberals have got the same sort of control over their caucus as well. So let's talk about election. What do you think? Is it possible?
Well, I mean, there's no question it is possible. some days it actually seems probable because the government has not been very receptive to Ms. Horwath's entreaties. And then other times, as we heard last night, where the Premier gives in on two very, very strong points. Andrea this morning had another press conference and said, well, it's not enough for her. But I mean, the Premier is starting to, excuse me, to learn how to play with this and is starting to negotiate. And if he makes maybe one more concession, it could be the higher tax rate on those individuals making $1.5 million a year. If that's it, my prediction is that we will not have an election. If they don't give in on something else, who knows? I mean, because Andrea's got this is her membership here today, and she's got to face them. So it's a very, very fine line that a leader has to play between being, you can say, politically responsible and also leading and being in front of her supporters. It's a tough act. She's done well so far, though.
All right, well, we will have to see and keep it here on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24. We're going to bring you back live to this rally that's marching its way through the downtown streets just a little bit later.
The end destination before heading back to Queen's Park is Yorkville, and of course, this route being picked specifically because they want to make a point. They want to say we are the 99%, and we want our shore faces to the 1%. Yorkville, of course, being a very affluent part of Toronto, a place that many people that I was speaking with today say they can't even afford to shop. So they want to bring that to the forefront and say, tax the rich more, tax the corporations more, in an effort to ease the strain or the cuts that are affecting ultimately the 99%. That's what we're hearing today. I'm seeing signs around me. Teachers unions, Canadian Auto Workers unions, child care workers are here. You can hear them chanting behind me. They're carrying their flags. They're carrying their banners, and they're making themselves very apparent to everyone who's sort of lining the streets here. The hope, I guess, is that they get some attention along the way from the shopkeepers and the shoppers in the Yorkville district.
All right, thank you very much for that, Jackie. We'll check back in with you just a little bit later. Stephen LeDrew is here. Stephen, I know you weren't that impressed by the numbers that we saw, but from that helicopter shot, it looks like the length of the protest is about almost half a city block.
Yeah, we're
right?
seeing if Jackie was on the part of Queen's Park going up to Wellesley, but what we're looking at right now from Chopper 24 is it appears to be southbound onto onto Bay Street, and the march is coming up Bay Street to Bloor. I could tell because there was construction on Bay Street today. We see it off to the right. Bay Street has been reduced from 4 lanes normally to 2 lanes, and you can see the protesters there. And yes, it looks like they've gained some members and some steam from when we saw it earlier on. When we saw them on the front of Queen's Park Crescent, it didn't look that well populated, but right now it looks like they are certainly well represented, and there's a lot of people there because you just see that shot. It was north on Queen's Park, all the way along Wellesley, which is 1 block, and now we see them what's your, that area, Carmen? It looks like at least 2 blocks.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Definitely not half a block. Well more than a block.
Yeah, so it's a good crowd, and this is first of all, I guess the warning to everybody with traffic around there is just stay away if you're
no
if you're
cars
driving.
Are getting through on
no, it's not on Bay Street, but all the streets around there are going to be congested and blocked as well. And this is a good crowd. I mean, they have certainly had other people joining them to swell their ranks, and you can just see from that shot right now, this live shot from Chopper 24, that most of the people have left Queen's Park. That green to the right is the east lawn of Queen's Park, so most of them, and you can see Wellesley is filled, and then up Bay Street. So this is turning into an impressive number of people, and they make their way through that construction, and just in a few moments, they'll be, at the very start of that, they'll be turning left, which is west along Bloor Street. At least that is their intended direction, Carmen. And that's where we'll see if they get any supporters, as Jackie was saying, whether they have people cheering them or jeering them. That's the test with the protest.
Well, before the budget came out, we heard the finance minister say, I know there'll be people at the front lawns. We're listening to the speeches. What do you think of the tone? Is the tone of the people speaking and the people taking part in this protest, is there still some goodwill towards the Liberal government at this point, or what's your take?
Well, I mean, the leader of the NDP, and we heard her live here about an hour and a half ago now, was in this speech a lot more adamant than she has been from the budget till now. But you have to look at put it in context. She was speaking to her supporters. She's at a rally. She wants to get everybody fired up and cheered up. And so it was a little bit more than different than when she is either speaking to the press or, I dare say, speaking to the Premier in her meetings. You know, we know Andrea as a political leader, and she's been here many times in the studio, and she has a very solid performer. So you tailor your speeches to the surrounding and to the needs of the time, and the other leaders know that as well. The Premier, watching this this afternoon and getting reports about it, knows. I mean, he's been out there and he has a very different stance, Carmen, as you know, when he is speaking to a crowd of partisans as opposed to a crowd of business people downtown. But this thing is gaining steam.
All right, well, we're going to continue to watch this protest as it wraps its way around the downtown streets of Toronto. But right now you are watching Toronto's breaking news, CP24. Time is 4:48. We're sitting at 7 degrees. And more on this and traffic and weather coming up next.